Hello all, my name is Matthew Lambert and this is my case study for EDL 853 Module 10. First of all, let's summarize the case and present the facts in what we are seeing with Miguel and the situation that has happened. So what is happening? Miguel Hernandez, he's the first sophomore to start on the football team at Nottingham High School, and he was injured in a game. The injury resulted in a spinal injury that left him paralyzed from the waist down. He did participate in a rehab program and from a few months, and he's now allowed to go back to school, and he is cleared by the physicians. When and where did this occur? It occurred, at Nottingham High School. They have an extremely successful program. The community is extremely involved. School was built in the 1950s, and the injury, of course, occurred in a football game at the high school. So let's ask ourselves, who's involved? Miguel Hernandez, he's a student athlete. Miguel's parents are involved. Ms. Guzman, the principal. Dr. Harvey, the superintendent. And also we have an attorney who's involved now, Mr. Carey, and he is the attorney for the Hernandez family. Let's summarize the case some more. Let's talk about Mr. and Mrs. Hernandez. They informed the school, that Miguel would be using a wheelchair, but no other accommodations were needed. The stance of the school. Mrs. Guzman, she presented Miguel with a trophy for his commitment because he was an athlete that was very endured. Everybody loved him at the school. He did a great job. When we talk about his schedule, Miguel's schedule changed and he was no longer in biology class because the classroom is not wheelchair accessible. So they had to find a way for him to attend a different class, and he was no longer able to attend the biology class. Meetings that occurred. Mrs. Hernandez, when she found this out, she requested a meeting to reinstate Miguel in the biology class because it would satisfy a college credit, not a high school credit, which a regular science class would satisfy, but she wanted the college class satisfied. Mr. Hernandez then, at the end of the meeting, he arrived with Howard Carey, who is the family's attorney, and that attorney is demanding a right to a free and appropriate public education and that his client's rights be protected under FAPE and under the Section 504 law. The legal and ethical issues that the school may be facing as a result. Legal issue. The school is not abiding by Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973. It states under Section 504, FAPE means providing regular or special education and related aids and services designed to meet the student's individual educational needs as adequately as the needs of a non-disabled students are met. The potential harm, let's talk about this. Miguel Hernandez, he has been harmed. He's been denied access to the biology class and his schedule has changed. In turn, this will not satisfy the university requirements. And also, in addition, his parents were not informed of the change. This leads us to the possible discrimination or harassment. Number one, we're denying access to a classroom. This is a FAPE violation that we have seen, and also his educational rights. Are they being protected? I don't think so in this case. So that's what we're going to go on further and examine. So in my synthesized statement, as far as synthesizing all the information, the sentence I want to state is, as a principal at Nottingham High School, it is my obligation and responsibility to ensure every student is given their right to a free public education that adheres to all rules and regulations to protect each student's rights and gives opportunities for the same education as any other student, regardless of any physical or mental disability. And the U.S. Department of Education tells us that Section 504 requires recipients to provide to students with disabilities appropriate educational services designed to meet the individual needs of such students to the same extent as the needs of students without disabilities are met. Let's synthesize and look at some facts now in this case study. Let's talk about the people involved. There's 3,200 students at Nottingham High School. Dr. Harvey is the superintendent. It's a devoted community. The community is very involved in the football program. They're very involved in the school. And Dr. Harvey has an excellent reputation at Nottingham High School. At Nottingham School District, I should say. We have the Hernandez family, 4 sons, which I will talk about a little bit later, how this is such, we need to make the best decision because we have these 4 children coming up all wanting to participate in the football program. Mrs. Guzman is the principal. Howard Carey is the family attorney. And finally, I want to discuss a little bit about the biology teacher because they will be affected as well. The place is Dover Unified School District. Nottingham High School is the central hub of the school district. It's within a few miles of Dover. The school was built in 1950s. A quarter of the school buildings remain as they were in the 50s and have not been renovated whatsoever. The program, of course, it's a public school. There's 6 elementary schools, 2 middle schools, and 1 high school. Again, it's a very supportive community with a successful football program. In reviewing and prioritizing the information, we want to look at a couple of things. Let's talk about the consideration to the stakeholders. All the stakeholders would be affected by the conflict. The community, there could be a negative perception of the school. Miguel, are his personal rights considered? Mr. and Mrs. Hernandez, should they be consulted before a decision is made about changing the schedule of their child? The teachers and staff, are they accommodating in every single way possible? Mrs. Guzman, did she move too fast or too rash in making a decision on what is best for Miguel? And then finally, Dr. Harvey, the knowledge and expertise, would that be in question? Is he really that knowledgeable on the happenings and what needs to go on to address all these issues in the school systems? Can I learn more, we ask ourselves. The few points that I want to discuss is collaboration with parents in making a decision over student scheduling. Incredibly important. We've talked about collaboration throughout the course, and this is what we really need to stress here. Let's talk about the layout of the school. Is it entirely wheelchair accessible for Miguel? And have we done the research, and are we able to adhere to Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act? Do I know enough to make a decision? So I ask myself these questions. Do I know enough about the IDEA Act? Do I know enough about Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act? Do I know enough about the parents' expectations? Have I been in contact with them? Do I know my teacher's expectations? Have I talked with Miguel? We know this biology class is a college requirement, but do I know his future goals? And yes, there are many, many decisions that need to be made. So with that being said, let's talk about identifying options and possible consequences that I have looked at. First of all, option 1, let's take no action. Keep the status quo. Miguel would stay enrolled in science class to graduate, but he would not qualify for those college prep classes. Option 2, this is the most comprehensive. Let's speak with the biology teacher, move the classroom to accommodate a wheelchair. Miguel would be enrolled in biology, and teachers would switch classrooms to accommodate this necessary change. Option 3, construction. We can construct a new entrance to the existing biology classroom to facilitate wheelchair access. We could also remodel the classroom to ensure and have access for Miguel at all times. Identify options and possible consequences, and I wanted to discuss another option, and that's option 4 that I came up with, and that's offering Miguel an online biology course that will satisfy the college requirements. Now let me evaluate the options of what I've came up with. My option 1 evaluation, let's talk about the pros of that. Mrs. Guzman, she wouldn't feel responsible for making a decision, and no money would be spent by the school district. We are just staying at the status quo. However, we have some cons of that. Possible lawsuit and fines will become a reality of not adhering to FATE, the IDEA, and the Section 504. Parents would not be satisfied. There would be backlash from the community. What would the students' perception of this be, and what would the teacher's perception of this be? Those could all be some cons and negatives that we have to look at. Option 2, the most comprehensive. Pros, Miguel would satisfy his college requirements. There would be trust in the school district. It would be reestablished. No lawsuit potential. And Miguel would be active in peer learning, which is essentially important to have that active learning among your peers. The cons, teachers may be upset in moving classrooms. The logistics would take time and extra work for teachers and staff. Finally, option 3, the construction. Pros of that, new room. Everybody likes new things, but a new room that will adhere to address the disabilities and be wheelchair accessible. And Miguel will be able to, of course, take the class. Some of the cons. How much time would it take? It could take too much time, be too costly. And where would Miguel go during the construction process during that time? Also, the noise and disruption during the other classrooms. We've all been in buildings when there's been construction going on, and that noise and disruption could cause some potential problems and potential effects. And finally, the online. The pros of that, it's easy to implement. Personal learning, extremely inexpensive. However, some cons, we negate that peer learning and peer relationships. Same learning, Section 504, I don't think it'd be the same learning as his other peers. And then, of course, the classroom access is dismissed. So we just negate that fact altogether. Choose the best option. When I decided to look at the best option, I thought it was option 2, the most comprehensive. This option would take very little time to implement. Mr. and Ms. Hernandez would be pleased once the plan is implemented. Miguel would be taking the class with his peers. The community would realize the schools, they're taking the necessary steps to ensure Miguel's rights are being protected. The potential for the lawsuit, it's distinguished, and Dr. Harvey and Ms. Guzman would be rewarded for doing the right thing. And I lead with this quote from Education Week. It says, as the leader of your building, much like the conductor of an orchestra, it is your responsibility to make sure that everyone is working to his or her maximum potential to serve our students. You have an incredibly important job. Implementation. I'm going to close here, and then I will come back with the next recording for my implementation.